Okay, a big day for Roger Goodell. Raj is in front of Congress. And it's really interesting to me. I brought this up, I think yesterday, right? Oh, no, the day before, yeah. I brought this up 2 days ago that there's a lot of people, and there was a congresswoman who called out Dan Snyder for choosing not to appear before Congress. As, well, you see what he thinks of women, and he parks a yacht out in Italy and whatever. Like, okay. Here's Congressman Daniels when he asks Congress why they're having this hearing.
Commissioner, you believe in the First Amendment, don't you?
I do.
I mean, all parts of it, all rights we have. Your right to practice your faith, your right to petition the government, right to assemble, freedom.
Madam Chair, the U.S. Supreme Court case, U.S. versus Watkins, makes clear that Congress's investigative power must be related to and in the furtherance of a legitimate task of Congress. Especially in light of the testimony by Mr. Goodell, how does continuing this hearing actually relate to a legitimate task of Congress in the face of record high inflation, record high gas prices, a completely unsecured border, a fentanyl crisis that is killing more people between the ages of 18 and 45 than any other cause in the United States, a baby formula crisis, a tampon crisis? Madam Chair, the commissioner has just detailed in his own testimony that the Washington Commanders, Redskins, whatever you choose to call them, have been held accountable. They've made necessary reforms to the organization. You got a chair here from Mr. Snyder who told the committee he was not going to be here.
The gentleman will suspend.
But Madam Chair, what is the purpose of this? What is the purpose of this hearing?
The gentleman will suspend. This is not about a stated parliamentary inquiry.
That is the parliamentary inquiry, Madam Chair. What is the purpose of it? You can bang the gavel all you want, but I don't really care. What is the purpose of continuing this, Madam Chair? That is the parliamentary inquiry. And how does Congress's business actually be continued? How does Congress's business actually be continued by continuing this hearing?
Co-sponsor.
This is going well, right? Here's Roger Goodell when he was asked about Jack Del Rio.
Commissioner, you believe in the First Amendment, don't you?
I do.
I mean, all parts of it, all rights we have. Your right to practice your faith, your right to petition the government, right to assemble, freedom of press, freedom of speech. You believe in all that.
Yes, Congressman.
Why do you ban Dave Portnoy from NFL games? He's a journalist. In fact, he's a sports journalist. Why is he banned?
Congressman, I'm not familiar with that issue. I'm happy to check with my staff, but I am not going to interfere with the workplace decisions that a club makes on a matter like that. That is not something that rises to the occasion, such as the subject that we're talking about today, when you have a workplace that is obviously toxic and unacceptable and unprofessional.
And no one supports that, but we do support the First Amendment. And I understand this is a private organization, but the chilling impact when speech is curtailed like this and you get fined for a tweet that you put out, I think that is a concern to all of us. That's why I raised it in the committee hearing today.
So, in case you're wondering why we have the gas prices we have a tampon shortage. I frankly did not know that. I heard this. Did you guys know there's a sriracha shortage? Did you? I don't know if you guys are sriracha deals, guys, or ladies. There's apparently a sriracha shortage. Look, the idea of the Washington Commanders football team, Redskins, whatever, having a toxic workplace environment is an issue. It was brought up to the league. The league handed down a very stiff punishment. And that's where I'll defend Roger Goodell is like, look, this has kind of been asked and answered. But you start asking him about questions, Portnoy, Jack Del Rio, another congressman is just like, what are we doing here? This is why Dan Snyder didn't testify. Because it's not a traditional courtroom. In a traditional courtroom, you have a judge who's a lawyer, who has climbed to whatever level of success and has to keep things on how does this pertain to the actual case at large? You got to tie things together. So to me, and again, I'm not a lawyer. I don't know, and I told you guys this 2 days ago. But the the Dave Portnoy question is part and parcel to why Dan Snyder was right, or his lawyers are right to tell him not to show up. Because Dave Portnoy, while that may be a big thing for whatever congressman, and he may be trying to make a point about free speech, whatever. Okay, speech is not. You are free to speak, but you're not free. You're not free from repercussion from your speech. Regardless of which, that has nothing to do with why he's doing an interview before Congress, why he's at this hearing. This is why, in all honesty, Tom Brady didn't hand over his cell phone to the NFL. While there could have been things on the cell phone that did, those deflator texts and whatever, which eventually came out anyway, but who knows what else can be asked about, especially if it's not in a court of law. So, look, Dan Snyder may be the worst guy ever. He may be the worst owner ever. But if you thought that him showing up at a hearing was going to end well, I give you what happened to Roger Goodell, what's going to happen throughout these hearings, which it's a dog and pony show. People's questions are too long. They're tangential. They grasp at straws for any sort of smoking gun that they feel like they can bring before the American public to prove that they're doing something. Do I think these hearings generally, in Congress can be important? I do. But these hearings right now are not accomplishing the task. And so they become just gobbledygook. They just become mind-blowingly boring. And we're talking about things that somebody has tweeted a week or 2 weeks ago instead of what's actually important to the masses. First, let's get to Dan Byer, find out what else is going on in sports. Dan, what do you got?
Isaac Lowenkron, Doug. No worries. Just sitting in for Dan today. And obviously the big topic, testimony by NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell in front of the U.S. House Oversight Committee, which revealed before Goodell's testimony that Washington Commanders owner Dan Snyder actively interfered with an NFL investigation into his team by using private investigators to harass and intimidate witnesses. The committee also announced that it will subpoena Snyder for a deposition next week. Snyder, of course, declining an invitation to appear at today's hearing. Commissioner Roger Goodell did testify via Zoom, and during his testimony today, Congressperson Rashida Tlaib played for Goodell a recording of two team employees speaking about a female intern. And for the purposes of clarification here for what you're about to hear, Congressperson Tlaib did not indicate when this conversation occurred, but it was sometime before the year 2020.
I do think our intern is looking better every day. I do think our intern is a little blonde there talking to Ace. She's blonde and black. Yeah. Sure, yeah.
The hell of the outfit in the middle of June.
She's looking freaking pretty good.
Unbelievable. So disgusting. Is this acceptable way to run a team?
That example you just showed me is not acceptable. And
could have been your daughter, sir.
Now, within just the last couple of moments, Commanders owners Dan and Tanya Snyder and team president Jason Wright sent an 8-page memorandum to team employees titled, and if I sound sarcastic here, that's my sarcastic inflection. It's not from the actual memo. Entitled, quote, "A reminder of 2 years of progress," unquote. While we respect the Congressional Oversight Committee's desire to learn more about how our workplace culture issues can be addressed, some of the comments in the media have portrayed our team in a harsh and negative manner that does not reflect who we are as an organization today.
There's a lot there. I mean, there's a lot there. I mean, Isaac, I know obviously the sarcasm in your voice. I mean, look, they were running it like it was the boys' club, and there's been I think Goodell's point, and the obvious point is like, look, we handed down a super harsh punishment, and now his wife's running the team, and he's not. So, you understand how people feel. Like, what are we doing? Like, we're doing the double jeopardy thing. What do you want people to do, Isaac? Like, what do you want people to do? Like, what you want Dan Snyder to lose the team? Because,
yes.
Why? What world do you live in, Isaac? You live in a fantasy world. You live in a fantasy world. If Dan Snyder is caught on tape saying those things, then maybe Maybe, but probably not. Okay, this is like the reality of business and how it has to evolve, and they handed down a punishment. It's like, look, if you get caught drunk driving, should there be a punishment more harsh than the one that is agreed to, right? Because you're taking somebody else's life into their hands. Yes, of course. Okay, you can. The guy who hit me is a drunk driver 7 years ago, right? He got like 6 months in jail. He lost his license.
Wait a minute. I didn't know that this happened. Gosh, I'm glad you're okay. I didn't know that.
No, it was super scary. I mean, the crazy part was I actually met the guy randomly in the same area parking my car like a year later. Anyway, like, do I think it should have been? Of course. Okay. But the guy lost his license. His insurance is forever going to reflect it. And we live in a country in which you get punished, you do the time, you move on, and if you do it again, the punishment becomes doubly severe, right? So again, if this is not me saying that Dan Snyder's a great dude, you don't have to be a great dude. Okay? This is not me saying that type of whatever type of behavior and the sophomoric stuff doesn't need to go. Of course it needs to go. There's also a reality there where and again, married guy, single guy, it's different. There is like, at what point in the workplace is a single guy allowed to ask a single woman out? At what point are you allowed to have real, honest guy conversations? Women have real conversations, right? If you have more women in the workplace, you don't think women are allowed to talk about guys, right? And objectify guys? Of course they are. Like, you know, they do. And there's a line there, and lines are crossed. But the point is, like, look, they fined him a ton of money. Was it $10 million? Is that what they fined him? Like, it's a lot of money. I don't care how rich you are. Richest people are the cheapest people. You got to pay $10 billion? You can't, whether you're a shadow, whether you really have control or you don't have control, I just think it's like we have this outrage over something which has already been on some level handled. And I almost feel a little bit, not a ton, of sympathy for Goodell, right? Because this is Goodell's job, is to handle the owners. But, like, you know, Goodell is forever going to be the guy who handed Ray Rice a 2-game suspension for where we saw a video of a vicious punch of his wife, right? But what no one tells the story of is at that point in time, that was the harshest penalty anybody had ever received for an off-the-field domestic violence incident in the National Football League, ever. Right? Like, we're looking at everything through the lens of today and through the lens of some sort of purity, which didn't. This to me is like, it's like when they go back and you want to take Thomas Jefferson's name off of school because he had slaves. Like, okay, our country at that point in time was in a quest towards religious and political freedom. And though we hadn't accomplished it, we were way more free than the rest of the world was. Nobody wants to say that because they're looking at it through a lens of today. It's not today. It was 250 years ago. So that's really the point. It's not saying this behavior is acceptable. It's saying that the behavior wasn't acceptable and people were punished. I think everybody involved outside of the owner lost their job, and he's lost any sort of respect. But I don't think there's any way it rises at this point to have him losing the franchise. Now, if they cook the books and it hurts other owners in their wallets, there's a different story.